So we have a purple candle today for our second week. And I used purple on purpose because we're talking about peace. And for me, purple is a very, very peaceful color. It brings in a lot of that sense of calmness, it's not an intrusive color like a red or an orange that kind of shouts at you. It's more of that which speaks of a different reality. And when we come to peace, we all need that different view than what is easiest for us to see. So as we start this week, as we light the candles, I want you to just think for a second about what is it. And I know that this year has not brought a whole lot of this. It's been such a calm and peaceful and normal year. But what about this year has brought a bit of unpeace to you?
Let me count the ways.
Exactly. Thanks, John.
And I think that the idea of that this week speaks is so important for us, isn't it? To speak peace to each other. And so I have something for you today. I invited a special reader to read our primary poem. It's called Amazing Peace, and it's been made into a children's book, gorgeous book. You might want to see that at some point or another. So I invited this person to read for us. So let me share my screen. And play for you our poem.
Production copyright 2005.
Oh wait, I think I forgot to, hold on.
All rights reserved.
Shoot. Hold on just a second, I will.
There's Catherine.
Catherine. Hello, Catherine.
Okay, let me try that again. Because I have to remember to click this thing that shares my computer sound so you can hear it. Because if somebody's, playing for you, you ought to hear it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, that's the
So-
idea.
So here we go.
Amazing Peace by Maya Angelou. Read for you by the author.
Oh.
When I was invited to attend the Christmas tree lighting at the White House and to deliver a poem on the occasion, I was honored. Tsunami, a major earthquake, Katrina and Rita had already happened to our world. I thought of the evacuees and realized that in times of hostilities and natural disasters, each human being becomes an evacuee. I thought that what we need now most, more than food and water, is peace. I wrote this poem, Amazing Peace. Thunder rumbles in the mountain passes, and lightning rattles the eaves of our houses. Flood waters await in our avenues. Snow falls upon snow falls upon snow to avalanche over unprotected villages. The sky slips low and gray and threatening. We question ourselves. What have we done to so affront nature? We interrogate and worry God. Are you there? Are you there really? Does the covenant you made with us still hold? Into this climate of fear and apprehension, Christmas enters, streaming lights of joy, ringing bells of hope, and singing carols of forgiveness high up in the bright air. The world is encouraged to come away from rancor, come the way of friendship. It is the glad season. Thunder ebbs to silence, and lightning sleeps quietly in the corner. Flood waters recede into memory. Snow becomes a yielding cushion to aid us as we make our way to higher ground. Hope is born again in the faces of children. It rides on the shoulders of our aged as they walk into their sunsets. Hope spreads around the earth, brightening all things. even hate which crouches breeding in dark corridors. In our joy, we think we hear a whisper. At first it is too soft, then only half heard. We listen carefully as it gathers strength. We hear a sweetness. The word is peace. It is loud now, louder than the explosion of bombs. We tremble at the sound. We are thrilled by its presence. It is what we have hungered for, not just the absence of war, but true peace, a harmony of spirit, a comfort of courtesies, security for our beloveds and their beloveds. We clap hands and welcome the peace of Christmas. We beckon this good season to wait a while with us. We Baptist and Buddhist, Methodist and Muslim, say, "Come, peace, come and fill us and our world with your majesty." We, the Jew and the Jainist, the Catholic and the Confucian, implore you, stay a while with us, so we may learn by your shimmering light how to look beyond complexion and see community. It is Christmas time, a halting of hate time. On this platform of peace, we can create a language to translate ourselves and to each other. At this holy instant, we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ into the great religions of the world. We jubilate the precious advent of trust. We shout with glorious tongues the coming of hope. All the earth's tribes loosen their voices to celebrate the promise of peace. We, angels and mortals, believers and non-believers, look heavenward and speak the word aloud, peace. We look at our world and speak the word aloud, peace. We look at each other, then into ourselves, and we say without shyness or apology or hesitation, peace, my brother, peace, my sister, peace, my soul.
Love hearing her voice, don't you?
Yeah.
And to put her voice to the poem, which is so magnificent anyway, and which speaks such a grand vision of what we're trying to do. In the midst of this year, which has been kind of the opposite of peace in so many different ways, we look for peace. We come to the Christmas season, which part of the announcement of the season is peace on earth, goodwill to all. And yet we're still sitting in spaces of unpeace. An election that went partially, at least mostly my way, doesn't completely calm the unpeaceful, does it? So today, as you're dealing with the unpeace around you, how is it that you find peace on earth, or at least peace within you? What are some of the places where you retreat to? What are some of the practices you use? How do you find that peace in the midst of? I'll give you an example. I keep a picture on my phone of a place called the Iao Valley. IAO. It sits in the center of Maui. And when I'm going through a time that's not quite peaceful, I just look at that picture and try to place my spirit back into that valley. And peace returns for a time. How about you? What do you do?
I get up in the morning and get a cup of coffee and go sit on a couch with my dog, often with a fire in the fireplace, which is what I'm doing now. And I do my meditation time and my reading, spiritual reading time. And I tend to wake up in a kind of depressed place.
Mm.
Something must be about my dreams, which I don't remember. But I need to take that time to kind of clear myself and be centered in a peaceful place for the day, because otherwise I don't do very well. It's just not, mornings are just not that good for me. They used to be, but they're not right now.
Yeah.
Not this year.
Yeah. How about the rest of you? What do you do to find peace? Go ahead, Nancy.
I do yoga and also remember to breathe. And I'm so much better at remembering to breathe than I used to be.
It's amazing how breathing actually helps your life.
In many ways, yeah.
And we do forget on a regular basis. We get so used to it being there that we forget to be intentional about it.
I've even got better at going up and down elevators without breathing. Because of COVID, I don't think the air exchange is very good in the elevators.
Mhm.
So the breathing and holding my breath for a long period of time helps too.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you. Anyone else? What do you do to find peace? Go ahead, John.
Well, my laptop opening picture, you know, that it's like the home picture.
Yes.
It is the picture of the front of our house, which we love very much in the sunset. And so every time I turn it on or turn it off, I'm reminded of that. And it's a very peaceful feeling for me. And very welcoming. Welcome home.
Well, and that sense of welcome home, which is part of what the Christmas season does for us, is it reminds us to go home, even if, like the song says, I'll be home for Christmas, if only in my dreams.
Yeah.
Just going home in our dreams, finding peace, even in just for a moment, even when we have to go back out, helps, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Who else has a practice of peace?
Well, for me, when I wake up in the morning, after I have my breakfast, I get a cup of chai, and I have this great view from my couch that I love of the pine trees and the palm trees and my patio, and I meditate, focusing on breath. And then I write in my journal. And writing in my journal helps me to make my feelings more what am I trying to say here? More relatable to me. I'm able to go explore topics and things in my journal that I'm interested in, and it centers me, I guess.
Thank you. Chai does that same thing to me. I drink chai not because I drink it, but because I smell it.
Mm.
And that smell is a calming force for me.
My son introduced me to chai, and I just love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Diane, I think I saw your hand.
Yes, mine isn't actually regular or intentional, but when I go outside and I look at the mountains, or I look at the sunset, or look at, I'm not looking at sunrise because I'm not up that early to be out in the cold, but I'm still astonished at the beauty around us. And that takes my breath away for a moment and brings it back. I'm so thankful and have such a feeling of belonging in this place, in this planet, and with all the creatures in it. It's a wonderful feeling of oneness and of peace.
And all of those things like that are absolutely beyond our control. The making of mountains, the lightning of sunsets, are just magnificent moments. Some of them very, very fragile in that they're only here for seconds. It feels like a sunset. Others that are continually there, like the Catalinas behind us. But those are all remind us that it's not all up to me, right? And that you're right; those are peaceful things. Because when I get in my worst states and I have to fix all the stuff that you guys are doing wrong, or that the world is doing wrong around me, to be reminded of that is helpful, isn't it? Just to see a tree that has grown for so many decades to give me the shade that I enjoy.
Well, mine is kind of an avoidance because I am refusing to watch news. It just gets me too wired up and so on. But I also try and remember that the angels to the shepherds saying, "Fear not, just fear not."
Yeah.
Whatever's coming, you don't have to be afraid. And that helps.
But what you're talking about, Judy, is that sense of retreat that we ought to do. One of the things that the booklet suggests is that we take a non-electronic retreat periodically and move away from those things like the news or the distraction or the whatever it is that we get in those phones, because those phones are wonderful tools, but they also have allowed things to invade into our life way too easily. Oh, I have to take this call. Well, we really don't. But they insist, don't they? I have to check my email one more time. Well, and so you're right that those retreats are really good things to do. But how many know that me being peaceful is not necessarily going to fix the unrest in the world?
Well, it's a beginning.
It's a beginning, and it's not what?
You're being non-peaceful is definitely not gonna fix it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so even while we need to do all of those things and find that peace within ourselves, the work of peace is much larger. It's not just my peace that we're seeking for, but our peace. Right? And it's not just as Maya Angelou pointed out, it's not just the absence of war. It's something more than that as well. We're looking for something bigger than all of these things. The problem is, like she said, peace starts off as a whisper. And you know all the things that are making that whisper hard to listen to, right? All the voices, both within us and around us, that make it so that I have to be very intentional about hearing that whisper. And even as it grows, she says, at first it is too soft, then only half heard. And she says, we listen carefully as it gathers strength. We hear a sweetness. The word is peace. We have to work really hard at hearing that sweetness. Even as much as what we want it, it's way too easy to be elusive. Her other poem, that is our other text for today, is an incredible piece called A Brave and Startling Truth. And it talks about, well, it says like this, and when we come to it, which is an important phrase in this poem, and when we come to it, to the day of peacemaking, when we release our fingers from the fists of hostility and allow the pure air to calm our palms, that which we're grasping hold of and we forget to let go of. And later on, she says it this way. We, this people on this minuscule and kithless globe, who reach daily for the bomb, the blade, and the dagger, yet who petition in the dark for tokens of peace. Because we all are holding on to that blade and that dagger But at the same time, we realize that we need something more than just the conflict between us, don't we? How many have felt that need particular this year, for example, in the politics? In the way the politics have invaded our response to COVID? And just in the day-to-day stuff that says it's not enough just to be against everything. Where is it that I am searching for peace? What whispers of peace are you hearing?
I get Bill Gates notes, and he had a thing today that was in his blog about his heroes right now. So I read and listened to videos of these people. They're from all around the world who are working. There's one woman who's like, forget which country she's in, but she's taking soap and teaching, knocking on doors and teaching how to wash hands, teaching. She's delivered over 100,000 bars of soap in her community. And
Wow.
it's like another person they're working on, they worked on other diseases, but now they're working on COVID-19, and a woman in, I think it's India, somewhere in India, who's like everything that they were, no, it wasn't, I'm sorry, I don't remember countries very well, but anyway, in her country, in her community, they speak 7 different dialects. And so she goes on, and all the COVID announcements were in English. So she goes on the community radio every day and reads those announcements in all the different dialects, so that the community understands what's happening. And I read those, and it's like, that gives me such hope that, there's heroes out there. There's so many people working quietly behind the scenes, doing things that the news media doesn't focus on. You don't hear about them. And so I love when I can learn about these people.
Yeah, and what you've said, Judy, is that that's what's going to bring peace, is those little whispers of, and things like language, as important and wonderful as language has been, also sometimes is the wall between us and the way we choose to divide ourselves. And so when you choose to step across that wall and address that person in their language, it's a huge gift and a huge offer of peace, isn't it?
Well, I remember a story I got, I think yesterday, off my cell phone. And you often don't see these on the national media, but it was a little 6-year-old boy who was starting a toy drive for those kids who didn't have toys. And from time to time, you come across these young kids who are doing something exceptional for others. And that always, makes me feel very good.
And kids do. One of the reasons why I loved working with kids, why I still love kids a lot, is because they look at life better than what we do. We look at it more realistically. I'm not trying to say that, but they look at it more idealistically, and that's what's going to ultimately help bring peace. Is an idealism that looks beyond the reality of who you are in this moment, that's causing you to be against me and me against you.
Well, do you remember the kid who started the diaper drives, which is now a national drive? He was 8 years old when he started that. And it just makes me really feel real joyful about children, of course, and that kind of innocent belief, and just do it. And I think that's beyond idealism. That is humanism in the truest sense. The kid, the person next door needs diapers, so he goes, oh, well, we can just collect them and give it to him.
Why not?
And then poof, it grows into this enormous gifting countrywide, really.
Well, you have to remember that they have parents who support what they're doing.
Yeah.
And
Because
community.
if the parents were not supporting, it wouldn't get off the ground.
Yeah, that's true.
So you have to say this kid has amazingly compassionate parents and are willing to support their kids' ingenuity and drive.
And also communities that rally around, because it doesn't matter how much the parents there saying do that. Maybe they collect a few packages of, but communities that say, oh, I'm going to go support that. And they tell their neighbors, and the neighbors tell their neighbors.
Yeah.
Right?
And often their churches are behind them too.
Yeah, oftentimes.
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about the scripture from Isaiah, not the one that's in our booklet, but one that I think of whenever I think of peace. And that's from Isaiah 2, that talks about beating swords into plowshares. Right? And I know why you should beat your sword into a plowshare, because I know why you're wrong holding on to that. But what allows me to let go of my sword? And it's stories like that kid who has said, here's a need, we just need to fill it. And so we put money towards that instead of putting it to something else that might be the divider, and we put it into this that will join our hearts together. Catherine.
Well, there's couple of things. First of all, I think that what's so wonderful about children is that they, there's a long time ago that I found a placard, and I've got it around here somewhere. I collect things avidly and read them over and over again. And it says success comes in cans, not can'ts. And I think it has a picture of a can on it. But I think children don't see all the obstacles. They just see clearly right to the source. This can be done. And so, we have voices in our head that children don't have yet, thank goodness. And so they can see possibilities and not pitfalls.
Yeah. Yesterday, Marty White was talking, and she was listing something that had happened. And she said 3 or 4 sentences that all started with these words: it still isn't, it still isn't, it still isn't. And those were all true. But I looked at her and said, yeah, when I say those kinds of words, I put another word at the end: damn it. Because I see all the things that aren't quite there yet. And the reality is that we have to just start to keep, what she was saying, look what's happened. Look what has taken place. And sometimes we're still aware of what's not taking place yet. And kids do remind us to see the miracle of what is there. Right?
Kind of in that vein, I read something, and I think the Times yesterday, where millennials who have inherited great wealth are giving away vast amounts of their fortune they've inherited because they don't think that it's fair. And they've actually formed this kind of nationwide group who are giving away great wealth to causes they believe in, for justice, Black Lives Matter, or poor things that help the poor, or whatever they're interested in. And I thought, wow, what a startling turnabout.
And I love that you use the word startling, because that's what the second Maya Angelou poem is titled, A Brave and Startling Truth.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to be startled by that truth. It says again and again, like I said, and when we come to it, and when we come to it, and it's all these things, when the curtain falls on the minstrel show of hate, when we let the rifles fall from our shoulders, those things that we have to come to in order to approach peace. And she says this, out of such chaos, of such contradictions, we learn that we are neither devils nor divines. We, this people, have the power to fashion for this earth a climate where every man and every woman can live freely, without sanctimonious piety, without crippling fear. When we come to it, we must confess that we are the possibles. We are the miraculous, the true wonder of the world. That is when, and only when, we come to it. And I love that she uses the collective rather than the individual. Not that I have to realize I am the possible, but that we are the largest we possible, which includes, guess who? Whoever it is that right now you're in conflict with.
The lesson in the Course of Miracles today, the text that I've been reading is exactly on that kind of point, that we individually, I get out my bows and arrows and my knives, and this one's bad and that one's, but when I'm with and communicating with another and looking at the spirit of God in that person, the perfect place, the spark of that she talks about, that spark that is spirit in that other person, whether it's the Donald or whether it's my best friend, if I can take that focus on where that spirit is, which is also within me, then that allows my spirit to blossom. And that allows all these other things to happen that can change the world. But it's like these little steps that we have to take based upon reflecting and being willing to forgive ourselves for being angry and wanting to attack and all that stuff, and instead come from that place of love, which is a spirit within us that is connecting and needs to connect with all others.
Yeah.
But we can only really do it one at a time. But it grows.
It does grow.
Yeah.
And I can do it with another one and another one and another one. So it's that same thing, Jim. I really like that's the only answer.
Yeah. 1914. World War I. Battle between different parts of Europe specifically. A story emerged at this time of year in 1914. It was made into this movie called Merry Christmas.
Oh, yes.
And it's a story of one particular space in that horrid trench war. Over here were the Scottish, over here were the French, over here were the Germans. And I believe it started with the Scottish singing some kind of Christmas song. And on the German side, there was an opera singer who happened to be there. And he begins to sing with this amazing voice that just transforms that space, especially the French, who just are in awe of the music that he's singing. And for a night, they choose to put their weapons down. They choose to remember the humanity of all of them, not the war that put them all in this trench. It's an incredible movie. If you haven't seen it, it's a great movie to watch this time of year, because we're in our own trenches, aren't we? And there's things that divide us in a whole lot of different ways, and that are making us forget that the person over there whose gun is pointed at me and mine at him, for some reason, that person is more than just that weapon. And what music will allow us to escape from that?
It seems like we we can stay mired in the past easily. And I see that with some of the posts on Facebook right now, and getting beyond the election and getting beyond whatever emotions for us, you know, that we were all basically, I think, addicted to being involved in, and just saying it's over, a new day's coming, and be hopeful about how things are, because we don't know. We didn't know a year ago. I'm reminded so strongly. I participated with Judy on Monday and our little Advent people, 4 of us. And, you know, it just strikes me that we have so many opportunities right now to be born again, to be something new, to be coming forth, that we can birth and be hopeful about. And I was struck yesterday when I went to the grocery store, and I have interesting encounters with people anyway, but this guard spoke to me or said something about celebrate something, and so I engaged with him. I stopped a moment and talked with him, and he was celebrating the fact that he had just gotten divorced after 22 years of marriage. And so I just joined him with that, and we talked in a deeper sort of way, because a long time ago I was divorced, and I remember that time, and I remember the things that I've learned along the way. And you know, he's like 53, so he's open to being different and to recognizing his part, and to also wishing his recently, you know, the divorced wife in this situation, the best life in the future. And I think that's so healthy, but I'm always struck by how we have these encounters with people, and I just always let them unfold in whatever way they're meant to, because I know there are no accidents for whatever reasons. And I just kind of feel a joy in that, in just being present with someone, and being able to celebrate their joy. And also I said, you know, the possibilities that are opening up. So I love it when that happens.
Thank you for sharing that. And divorce is one of those things where obviously we have unrest, unpeace, right? Something has happened in that relationship that is causing us to have to choose differently and seemingly choose away from each other. But in very real way, the best divorces are marked by the fact that who I am is not who you need in this type of relationship.
Yeah.
And can we give each other better peace by being apart?
Yeah.
The problem is, by being apart, sometimes we grow our animosity towards each other, and we say, well, she was the cause of. And the reality is that should be a gift we give to say, now we can both be at a better place of peace.
Mm-hmm.
And that's especially important if there's kids involved, because whatever you're saying about that other person, those kids are hearing, whether they hear the words or they hear the emotion behind the words. I'm acutely aware of how in this election I got some peace, but how some of my friends did not.
Mm-hmm.
And how am I present in their non-peace in this moment, in a way that it allows us to somehow come together towards a community again?
Well, I think think and feel that it's like grieving, it's like anything, and you can't legislate it, you can't demand that it happen now. You have to be willing to say, I'm where I find myself, and I still feel whatever I feel about it. And so I think people have to come to grips in their own time and in their own way. And how do we facilitate that for others? I think that's a question you're asking, is how do we allow people to have the space to deal with whatever it is they're dealing with. And we want it to be over. We want it to be now. We want everybody to be ready to embrace 2021.
The hard part about that statement is we do want it to happen now, but usually we follow that up either vocally or in our head with a, and if you just be like me.
Yeah, right. Because we know best, and you know, and it's a hard thing to know best, and you know, wait for people to get on board.
Yep. Yep.
So it goes back to patience.
And it goes back to, okay, so our metaphor, our image that we're going to be using throughout Advent in celebration is that of beloved community. How do we become beloved community?
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy for us to think that that happens because everyone becomes like me. But beloved community happens when we allow for the diversity of what is there and not have to fix everything about you. We come to too many hard right answers. And by that, I mean right answers that are firm and rigid and cannot be let go of, cannot be adjusted, cannot be modified. And if I'm trying to say you have to have this same right answer that I have, usually it becomes a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And the lighter the touch, like for example in the poem where she said we let go and we feel the cool breeze on our hand, it allows us to even if that's a good right answer, to not hold it as the ultimate only right answer. And you probably noticed that your opponents have some right answers for them that are not your right answer.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to say the same thing about you, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we hold on to those answers lighter so that we give permission to the other person to not have to hold on to theirs so tightly? Elizabeth, you look like you had something to say.
Yeah, it has, when you said that about being lighter, really wrong for me. I get such an intense investment in thinking that I'm right and have that happen for everyone else because it brings me joy. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is, the issue is, it seems the right way to create joy and to peace and all that. And I have, the lesson for me is in learning that I don't know the answers. I can't see the future. I don't know the way in which I'm supposed to develop, and doing the best I can and walking through my life. And I just need to be stepping back from that intensity of feelings about anything in the physical world.
Here's the really bad news is most of our right answers.
And that's what it's about, is having those intense feelings about how the physical world is.
Uh-huh.
That's all, I guess. Yeah.
Most of our right answers, no matter how right they are, won't solve all the issues of the world. And so sometimes when we're holding on to this as an ultimate answer, it's it's in the face of somebody else trying to ask a different question.
Can I put a different spin on that maybe? I listened to a podcast recently where the person interviewed Brene Brown, and she said they interviewed all the great spiritual leaders, the Dalai Lama, Thich Nhat Hanh, all these great spiritual leaders of the world, and they did this data analysis to come up with what was the one common thing among all these great spiritual leaders. And they were expecting, you know, all the normal stuff, and they were really knocked flat by the one thing that all these great spiritual leaders had in common were boundaries of steel. That they knew the difference between good and bad, good and evil, and they did not let abusive people into their sphere. So I understand completely where you're coming from, but I also have, you know, that started me thinking in a whole nother area where it's like, for a long time, I just don't let abusive people in my life. If you're toxic, I don't want you in my life, you know? I don't want to have to I don't even want a conversation with you. For my own sanity and my own health even.
Right.
But
and I
so
don't
there's just a difference, I guess, too, because I don't have family that doesn't agree with me, so that helps too. But but I'm just saying that I have the phrase boundaries of steel, and how you think of that in a different light. It just resonated with me.
And I think that's important because we have to have those boundaries that allow us to hold on to the inner peace that we have. And that is an essential path of the spiritual life. But the outer path of that same spiritual life is that which transforms the world so that I don't have to have barriers between me and you. Right? And sometimes those barriers are important. Drawing boundaries between us is essential. But if I'm not working on taking away whatever it is that has caused the need for us to have boundaries, that's the other side of peace. Right? If I allow you to continue to diminish the personhood of somebody else, but I've got these boundaries that don't allow you to penetrate into mine, then you're going to continue to be abusive.
I don't think, though, that that's hitting the point they're making with this. If you think about the Dalai Lama and his life, you know, it's like, he's not saying, he has great compassion.
Right.
And he's even stated that he hates what the Chinese are doing to his country,
right,
but he doesn't hate the individual.
Right.
So I think, though, that it's like, I've had to really ponder on that phrase and how it relates to, it's not saying you don't have compassion and you don't care for other people.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have to think about it more.
Yeah, it's the struggle, Judy. I think it's okay. So one of my, and some of you have probably heard me say this, one of my ways of viewing the whole of humanity, right, from the beginning of time to now, is our definition of the me in that. And if you look back, we defined the me very smally. It was just me at first, the solo hunter out there surviving the world. But then we developed family groups and small towns to be able to come together and provide a space of protection, of peace, if you will, with each other, with each other. But that was usually at the expense of calling someone else the enemy, something else the enemy. And so we bound ourselves together to find peace against that. But we increasingly enlarged those things until now we're at the large nation state, right? And in some ways even larger than that, the Eastern Bloc versus the Western Bloc, so to speak. What will allow us to, and those have been firm boundaries, and those have been important, and they've helped the development of humankind, but they were also boundaries that we continually pushed further and further away as we enlarged the definition of me. We're at the space where the next step is to say us, humankind, but who's the opposition? Who do we fortify ourselves against? It could have been that in this moment, 2020, we decide we as the human race protect ourselves against COVID, and that we come together and become humanity fighting this disease. But that didn't quite happen, did it? I think you do have to have those walls, but we also have to figure out what expands us beyond just that wall. When do I let that oppositional person in? And I'm not trying to say in any particular instance that you should, because I think boundaries between us are important. But what the Dalai Lama does, and what Desmond Tutu does, and what most of the great leaders have done, is they both have firm boundaries, but also have this inclusiveness that is reaching beyond just the boundaries and calling to a different world. Go ahead, Diane.
Yeah, it also occurs to me that when they were talking about boundaries of steel, one aspect of that could be knowing where they end and the other person begins. Because sometimes the confusion in relationships has to do with that merging of whatever that person is has invaded me, so therefore has threatened the me. Yeah. Whereas if the boundary of knowing who I am is secure, then that person cannot invade and threaten me. Therefore, I can hear that person better.
Right.
That could be one way of looking at it.
I think you're right, Diane.
Yeah.
In our other poem, the one, where is it? The one by Mary Oliver, which is titled "Making the House Ready for the Lord," right? And what do I do during this time to allow the baby, to be born here at my house? She talks about cleaning things and how nothing is as shiny as it should be for you. There's still the mice under the sink and the squirrels gnawing their way through ragged entrances. And at the end, she comes down to, "I still believe you will come, Lord. You will. When I speak to the fox, the sparrow, the lost dog, the shivering sea goose, know that really, I am speaking to you whenever I say, as I do all morning and afternoon, come in, come in." That sense of come, that sense of inviting is an important sense. How do I, even in the midst of opposition, not say "and never," but have an inviting spirit also? And that's tough to do, because I have a whole bunch of reasons why I don't want to deal with some of those people who voted differently in the election. Yeah. Who acted differently in the midst of a pandemic. And yet, am I still willing to see them as that larger me? That spirit which connects us all. And do I still, in some way or another, extend an invitation maybe a hesitant invitation, maybe a very boundary drawn invitation, but is the table, are they still invited to the table? Are they still part of the family? And that's hard. And what in some ways helps, but in some ways makes it even more confusing is it's sometimes them wondering if I get to be invited to their table, because they have the same types of hesitations about me.
But somebody has to be first.
Yeah, yeah.
And you could just wait and wait and wait. And sometimes it's pride that keeps us from making that first move.
Yeah, sometimes it
And
is.
somebody's waiting, everybody's waiting. So somebody has to take the leap.
That's why I love what Maya Angelou did in this poem. She said this at one point: "It is Christmas time, a halting of hate time. On this platform of peace, we create a language to translate ourselves and to each other. Because I have to translate who I am better if I'm going to be able to step into that relationship, and I have to translate you better, right? And you have to do the same work." And then she says at the end, "Look heavenward and speak the word aloud, peace. We look at our world and speak the world aloud, peace. We look at each other, then into ourselves, and we say without shyness or apology or hesitation, peace, my brother, peace, my sister, peace, my soul." At least part of what we're trying to do in the midst of this celebration, a Christian celebration, is to also say there's a larger picture that is saying, can we bring the ideal that we hold, but that we don't hold without you being part of it? Do we speak peace? Peace on earth, goodwill to all. It's an ongoing battle, isn't it? It's an ongoing struggle to try to figure out how we break down the barriers. Tonight at 7 o'clock, we have a short devotional. So it'll take about 15 minutes. The trio will be singing, and we will have time to just meditate and just move into an introspection time, because peace needs to have that type of time. But there'll also be, I'll just leave the Zoom link open so that people can just talk to each other. So if you want to reconnect with some of your friends, come tonight at 7 o'clock for that. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's the title for that on the that we
What
click on to?
you do is you go to the website,
Yeah.
and then it has a thing for all of our activities, and
Right.
you're about 2/3 of the way down that page, and it's called
Events.
Advent Devotional Services.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
And on the back of the Maya Angelou thing, it also has the Zoom code and the password.
That's right. And the Zoom code is easy, love.
Yeah. Love.
And in
Yeah.
small letters.
Small
Yeah.
letters, that's right.
Yeah, Jim,
Yes,
do you have a way to contact Letitia?
I do.
She had sent me on chat an invitation, and I emailed her back, and the email didn't go through.
Yeah, no, I
And
saw
she's
her.
not in the current directory. She's not in the new directory.
Right. I saw her just yesterday. She was here for a second, dropping off some food. So I will tell her when I see her to get hold of you.
Yes, please.
New directory.
How do we
Bye,
get a hold?
everyone.
Yeah, bye. How do we get a hold of a new directory, Jim?
Call Melissa and she will get one for you.
But she's
Okay.
gone now till. No, that was last week.
That was last week,
He's-
yeah.
he's
That
here.
was last week.
If you just leave a message for Melissa, she will get that for you.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Jim, I have a question when we're through, please.
Okay, perfect. So to all of you, go in peace.
Thank you.
Not because
Give
it's,
my love to Joni.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you so
Bye.
much for
Thank you.
everything.
Have a good week.
You
Bye,
too.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Jim, actually, there are two questions. Is
Yes,
it okay to just leave the Advent candle table as the altar for the rest of the
Yes.
season?
absolutely.
Okay. And the other one is, we're supposed to meet today
Yes, 1 o'clock.
at 1 o'clock?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think-
phew. I just remembered it and I thought it was 11 and there's
No, 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. Okay, I'll do my best to be there. Thank you.
I will see you then. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.